The match never happened, but everyone remembered it as if it had. Not because punches were thrown, because they were not. A chalk line had been dragged across the parking lot behind the restaurant. One man standing on one side, Bruce Lee on the other, and a crowd waiting for violence to prove what dignity had already answered. It was late afternoon behind a small Chinatown restaurant, where delivery crates leaned against brick walls and the smell of soy sauce, rainwater, and hot oil floated through the alley. The martial arts seminar had ended an hour earlier. Students were eating inside. Instructors were talking outside. Everyone thought the day was over. The man who tried to restart it was named Vince Mallory in this story. He was fictional but recognizable. Broad shoulders, loud voice, bruised confidence, and the kind of smile men use when they want witnesses before they do something foolish. Vince had not attended the seminar to learn. He had attended to be seen challenging the teacher. He had watched Bruce all afternoon with arms folded, reacting to every demonstration like a man collecting reasons to be unimpressed. When Bruce spoke about control, Vince smirked. When Bruce corrected a student gently, Vince muttered that real fights were not gentle. When people applauded, Vince looked offended by their respect. That is how insecurity often disguises itself as toughness. It does not simply doubt another man, it resents the room for respecting him. Vince was not angry because Bruce had insulted him. Bruce had barely spoken to him. Vince was angry because Bruce's calm made Vince's noise look smaller. After the meal, Vince waited near the back door with two friends and a cigarette he barely smoked. He wanted timing. He wanted an audience. He wanted Bruce outside, away from the polite seminar room, where he could turn discipline into a public dare. Men like Vince believe every quiet man is only quiet until properly challenged. Bruce came out carrying a paper bag of leftovers given to him by the restaurant owner's wife. A few students followed him, laughing softly about something from the meal. The air was cooling. Neon signs were beginning to wake in the windows. For one peaceful second, the world had no fight in it. Then Vince stepped forward. "Mr. Lee," he said loudly enough for the students to stop walking. Bruce turned. The paper bag remained in his left hand. "You talk well," Vince continued, "but I want to see what happens when someone does not follow your classroom rules." The students went quiet. That silence pleased Vince. He had created a stage from an alley, and now he wanted the play to begin. Bruce looked at him, then at the students, then at the restaurant door where the owner's wife had appeared with a towel in her hand. Bruce did not put the paper bag down. That small detail annoyed Vince. A man trying to provoke a fight wants ceremony. Jacket removed, stance taken, faces hardened. Bruce kept holding the leftovers as if Vince had not yet earned both hands. "You are upset," Bruce said. Vince laughed. "No, I am ready." Bruce shook his head slightly. Ready men do not need strangers to watch. The line reached the students first, then the older instructors. Vince heard it last, and it hit him where his challenge had been hiding. Vince's smile tightened. "So you refuse?" The word was chosen carefully. Refuse can sound like fear when said loudly enough. Vince wanted the crowd to hear it that way. Bruce did not answer quickly. He let the word hang in the alley until its cheapness became visible. Then Bruce said, "I refuse to give your anger my discipline." Nobody moved. It was not a theatrical sentence. It was too controlled for that. It sounded like a door closing. Vince's friends looked at each other. They had expected excuses, not a standard. Vince stepped closer. "That is a nice way to say no." Bruce nodded. "Yes, it is no." That answer was dangerous because it contained no apology. A man with real self-respect can say no without dressing it as weakness or decorating it with explanations. A young student named Tommy stood near the trash cans, watching with wide eyes. He was 17 and had spent the seminar hoping to see something unforgettable. At first, he felt disappointed. He had imagined Bruce answering the challenge with speed. He had not yet understood that restraint can be harder to watch because it demands maturity from the viewer. Vince saw the student's face and used it. "Even your boys want to see it," he said. Bruce looked at Tommy, not with anger, but with responsibility. "That is why I will not do it," he answered. Tommy looked down, suddenly aware that his curiosity had become part of the pressure. That moment shifted the lesson. Bruce was not only refusing Vince, He was teaching the boys what not to reward. A fight accepted for ego becomes a classroom too. The question is what the classroom teaches. Vince wanted to teach that insult deserves performance. Bruce wanted to teach that dignity can decline the stage. Vince dragged his shoe across the wet pavement, drawing a rough line through spilled chalk dust from a delivery crate. "Cross it," he said. The line looked childish and effective at the same time. Human pride loved visible borders. They simplify fear into a game. Bruce looked at the line. "A line does not make a reason," he said. Vince flushed. His friend stopped smiling. The restaurant owner whispered something to his wife, and she stepped back inside, not out of fear, but to keep the younger kitchen workers from crowding the door. Vince took off his jacket and threw it onto a crate. Now the ceremony had begun without Bruce's consent. He rolled his shoulders, spat to the side, and raised his hands. The alley smelled of rain and garbage and impatience. Bruce still held the paper bag. One instructor quietly asked Bruce whether they should call someone. Bruce shook his head once, not because he wanted danger, but because he understood the moment was still controllable. There is a difference between avoiding a fight and being unable to manage one. "Last chance," Vince said. Bruce stepped toward him, but not across the line. The crowd inhaled. Vince's face lit up. Then Bruce stopped, reached into the paper bag, and handed it to Tommy. "Hold this carefully," he said. "Do not spill the soup." The absurdity broke the tension for half a second. Someone almost laughed. Vince hated that. He did not want comedy. He wanted gravity, fear, proof. Bruce had made the room feel human again by caring about soup in the middle of a challenge. But Bruce's eyes stayed serious. He looked at Tommy. "If a man makes you careless with small things," he said, "he already has some control over you." Tommy gripped the bag with both hands. The lesson had moved from Vince to the student before anyone could stop it. Vince lunged across the chalk line. Not a full attack, but enough to force a reaction. Bruce moved one step to the side, caught Vince's wrist, turned it just enough to stop the forward motion, and released him immediately. No strike, no throw, no damage, only interruption. Vince stumbled but did not fall. That mattered. Bruce could have made him fall. Everyone felt it. But the refusal continued even inside the movement. He had defended the boundary without accepting the fight. That is a difficult kind of control because it gives pride fewer excuses. Vince's face changed. He had expected either fear or violence. He had received neither. He received a correction that looked too small for the anger he had brought. That made him angrier. A man trying to perform toughness hates being handled like a problem rather than battled like an equal. "You touched me," Vince said. Bruce answered, "You entered my space." The answer was plain. No drama, no philosophy. It reminded everyone that refusing to fight did not mean surrendering the right to protect oneself. Peace without boundaries is only permission for louder men. Vince came again, this time faster. Bruce stepped inside the shoulder line, placed one palm on Vince's chest, and stopped him against his own forward drive. It lasted less than a second. Vince froze because he felt how close the moment was to becoming painful, and how deliberately Bruce had kept it from doing so. Bruce stepped back. "I will stop you," he said. "I will not help you become the man you are trying to be right now." The alley went quiet in a different way. The sentence had named Vince's problem without insulting his whole life. That was Bruce's strength in the moment. He did not call Vince a coward. He did not call him a fool. He spoke to the part of Vince still capable of hearing. Adult correction should leave a man one door back to dignity. Otherwise, it becomes only punishment. Vince breathed hard. His hands were still raised, but the shape had changed. Earlier, his guard had been a threat. Now it looked like a man holding up a wall he was tired of carrying. His friends no longer encouraged him. That silence mattered. Performance dies when the audience stops feeding it. Tommy watched the soup bag tremble in his hands. He had wanted to see Bruce win. Now he was seeing something more difficult. A man winning without taking the bait. The boy did not yet have language for it, but his idea of strength had begun to change. Vince lowered one hand and pointed at Bruce. "You think you are better than me?" Bruce shook his head. "No, I think you are better than this." The words were not soft. They were heavier than insult because they required Vince to remember himself. That line reached one of Vince's friends, a quiet man named Earl. Earl looked at Vince and said, "Leave it." Vince turned on him. "Shut up." Earl did not. "He is not giving you what you came for." The audience had shifted again. Vince's own circle was beginning to see the trap. Vince hated that more than Bruce's refusal. When a man builds a scene to prove himself, the collapse of the scene feels like personal collapse. He stepped back over the line and looked at the crowd, searching for mockery. What he found was something worse for pride: calm attention. Bruce picked up Vince's jacket from the crate and held it out to him. The gesture was not submission. It was an exit. A man who only wants victory might leave the jacket on the ground. Bruce offered it because he wanted the moment to end with dignity still possible. Vince did not take it, not at first. The jacket hung between them like the fight that had not happened. Bruce waited. Waiting can be an act of pressure when it offers a man the chance to choose better in front of witnesses. Finally, Earl took the jacket and pushed it into Vince's hands. "Come on." Vince looked at Bruce one last time. The old challenge tried to return to his face, but it had lost its audience. He put the jacket on slowly, as if every sleeve required an admission. Before leaving, Vince said, "You did not win anything." Bruce answered, "Good." The word confused him. Bruce continued, "Then no one had to lose." That was the cleanest ending the alley could receive. It disappointed the part of the crowd that wanted spectacle and fed the part that needed a standard. Vince walked away with Earl and the other friend. No applause followed. That was right. Applause would have turned restraint into another performance. The alley remained quiet, full of rain smell, neon light, and the strange heaviness of a fight that had been refused and still settled. Tommy handed the paper bag back. "I did not spill it," he said almost proudly. Bruce looked at the bag, then at the boy. "Good," he said. "You kept control of what was in your hands." Tommy understood only part of it, which was enough for that day. One of the older instructors said, "You could have finished him." Bruce nodded. "That is why I did not need to start." The sentence was quiet, but it carried the whole lesson. Power that must constantly prove itself is not secure. It is hungry. The restaurant owner came back outside with hot tea. He looked at the chalk line on the pavement and shook his head. "Men draw foolish lines," he said. Bruce accepted the tea. "Sometimes," he answered. "Sometimes we also step over them in foolish ways." Tommy stared at the line. Earlier, it had looked like courage. Cross the line, accept the fight, prove the man. Now it looks smaller, a wet streak of chalk on pavement, powerless without pride to worship it. Bruce asked Tommy what he had seen. The boy said, "You refused to fight." Bruce nodded. "And?" Tommy hesitated. "But you were not afraid." Bruce nodded again. "Remember that those can be together." That was the lesson for the young. Refusal and fear are not the same thing. Fighting and courage are not the same thing. A man can decline a fight because he is weak. He can also decline because he is strong enough not to be ruled by another man's weakness. Tommy asked, "How do you know the difference?" Bruce looked at the alley where Vince had disappeared. "Ask what you are protecting," he said. If you are protecting life, family, dignity, or someone who cannot protect himself, act. If you are protecting only your image, wait. The word wait had weight. Tommy had heard adults say wait as if it meant do nothing. Bruce used it differently. Wait meant do not hand your timing to insult. Wait meant let the false urgency die. Wait meant remain capable without becoming available to every provocation. Inside the restaurant, the students returned to their tables, but nobody talked loudly. The refused fight sat with them more heavily than a fight might have. A fight would have given them a clear ending. Bruce wins, Vince loses. Refusal gave them questions. Questions last longer than cheers. Was Vince brave or trapped? Was Bruce merciful or strategic? Did refusing make him stronger, or did strength make refusal possible? Each student carried a different version of the alley into the evening. Bruce ate quietly. He did not retell the moment. That mattered. Men who refuse a fight and then brag about refusing it are still feeding the same hunger. Bruce let the lesson breathe without making himself the hero of a story everyone had just witnessed. Tommy, however, could not let it go. He sat across from Bruce and asked, "What if people think you were scared?" Bruce looked at him. "Then they think it." The simplicity of the answer frustrated the boy. It also fascinated him. Bruce continued, "If your dignity depends on correcting every stranger's opinion, you will become their servant." Tommy looked down. The line sounded too big for the restaurant, but it fit the alley perfectly. Vince had tried to make Bruce serve his opinion. Bruce had refused the employment. That is the adult heart of the story. A man's self-respect cannot be outsourced to the crowd. If the crowd can demand proof whenever it wants, then the crowd owns him. Bruce kept ownership of himself. That was the victory. Later, when the meal ended, Tommy walked outside alone and stared at the fading chalk line. Rain had begun to soften it. The line that had seemed so powerful was disappearing without a single punch thrown. That image stayed with him. The next week, Tommy faced his own small test. Another student mocked his slow footwork during practice. His first instinct was to snap back, to make the room see he was not weak. Then he remembered the paper bag in his hands and Bruce saying, "Do not spill." He said nothing at first, not because he had no answer, but because he wanted to choose one. Then he asked the student to drill with him. The room moved on. No dramatic victory, no applause. But Tommy felt something steady inside him that had not been there before. Bruce noticed. After class, he asked, "Did you want to answer him?" Tommy nodded. "Very much." Bruce asked, "And what did you protect by waiting?" Tommy thought, "The training." Bruce nodded. "Good. Then waiting was not weakness." That is how the alley lesson became useful. It did not remain a story about Bruce being calm. It became a method for a young student facing smaller provocations. A real lesson must survive outside the dramatic moment, or it is only entertainment. Vince also carried the day differently. He did not become gentle overnight. That would be false. But the refusal bothered him. He could not brag about being beaten because he had not been beaten. He could not brag about winning because everyone had seen he had not won. What remained was discomfort. Discomfort can become bitterness or growth. For weeks, Vince chose bitterness. He told people Bruce had ducked the fight. He called restraint a trick. He said the alley proved nothing. Yet each retelling grew weaker in his own mouth. Because he knew. Men often know the truth before they admit it. He knew Bruce had stopped him twice without taking the fight. He knew the crowd had not seen fear. He knew the line he had drawn had trapped him more than it had trapped Bruce. One evening, Vince found himself outside another gym, watching two younger men argue over a shove. He recognized the same hunger in them, the need for witnesses, the cheap line drawn by pride. He heard himself say, "Leave it." The word surprised him. The younger men ignored him at first. Vince stepped between them, not with heroics, but with irritation born from recognition. "You are both trying to win an audience," he said. The sentence sounded like Bruce's lesson wearing Vince's voice. That is influence, not worship, not instant conversion. A man who was corrected later becomes capable of interrupting the same foolishness in another room. Bruce did not need Vince to praise him. The lesson had already entered Vince's behavior, even if pride had not approved the paperwork. This is why the story should not humiliate Vince into a cartoon. He is more useful as a man trapped by ego who receives a chance to escape it. The audience should feel the danger in him, but also recognize the human weakness underneath, the fear of looking small. Bruce's refusal exposed that fear without crushing the man. That balance is essential. If Bruce destroys Vince, the story becomes revenge. If Bruce only walks away, the story may feel passive. Instead, he sets a boundary, stops aggression, refuses spectacle, and leaves Vince a path back to dignity. The path was not easy. Dignity often is not. It asks a man to give up the short pleasure of looking dangerous for the deeper strength of being responsible. Vince wanted the first. Bruce demonstrated the second. The chalk line became the perfect symbol. A line can protect. A line can mark a boundary. But a foolish line, drawn by wounded pride, becomes a leash. Vince thought he had drawn it for Bruce. He had drawn it around himself. Bruce never crossed it because there was no good reason to cross. Then when Vince crossed in aggression, Bruce handled the aggression without honoring the game. That distinction made all the difference. He did not obey the line. He obeyed the truth of the moment. For adult viewers, that is the code. Do not let another man define the terms of your dignity. If the terms are false, refuse them. If danger becomes real, act cleanly. If the danger is only to your image, let the image go hungry. A hungry image can destroy a man. It asks for arguments, fights, demonstrations, revenge, applause. It never becomes full because it is not the man himself. Bruce did not feed his image in the alley. That is why he left stronger than when he entered. Tommy learned that strength can be quiet without being weak. Vince learned, slowly and unwillingly, that provocation can fail without the other man running. The students learned not to confuse entertainment with courage. Even the restaurant owner learned that a foolish line can disappear in the rain. The best part of the story is that nobody got what they expected. Vince expected a fight. The students expected a demonstration. The crowd expected a winner and a loser. Bruce gave them something harder to process, a boundary enforced without ego, and a victory that did not need damage. That kind of victory is difficult to sell to boys because boys want visible proof. It is easier to sell to men who have lived long enough to know that some fights cost more than they prove. A grown man counts consequences, not only impact. Bruce counted consequences. A fight in the alley could injure Vince, frighten the restaurant owner's family, teach Tommy the wrong hunger, and turn a seminar about discipline into a story about ego. Winning such a fight would still leave something important lost. So he refused the false fight and accepted the real responsibility. He protected the space. He protected the students. He protected his own discipline. He even protected Vince from the full consequence of his foolishness. That is not passivity. That is command. Command is the word beneath the whole episode. Command of the body when Vince lunges. Command of the mouth when insult arrives. Command of the ego when the crowd waits. Command of the moment when everyone else wants the simplest, loudest answer. Bruce Lee's power in this story is not mystical. It is not that he could defeat anyone with secret technique. It is that he knew when not to spend power. A man who cannot withhold power is not fully powerful. He is only armed. The difference between armed and powerful is character. An armed man has means. A powerful man has means and judgment. Bruce showed judgment in the alley. Vince had means too. What he lacked was command over why and when to use them. Tommy understood this more deeply years later. He became an instructor and sometimes told students about the paper bag. They always laughed at first. Then he would explain that the soup was the lesson. If provocation makes you spill what you were trusted to carry, the provocation has already beaten you. That line became part of Tommy's teaching. Do not spill what you carry. It could mean soup. It could mean training. It could mean family, reputation, peace, self-respect, or the safety of people around you. Every man carries something into conflict. Vince had carried pride. Bruce had carried discipline. Tommy had carried soup. The alley revealed which burden each man protected. That is why the scene works visually and emotionally. The smallest object showed the biggest difference. The next rain washed the chalk line away completely. But for those who saw it, the line remained in memory. Not as a place Bruce refused to cross from fear, but as a place where he showed that a man does not have to walk into every trap just because the trap has an audience. That is the final adult lesson. Courage is not obedience to provocation. Courage is loyalty to what matters. Sometimes what matters requires action. Sometimes it requires restraint. The immature man cannot tell the difference. The disciplined man trains until he can. Bruce trained that difference. It appeared in his feet, his hands, his timing, his voice, and his refusal. He did not refuse because he lacked ability. He refused because ability without purpose becomes another kind of weakness. This is why the title matters. The day Bruce Lee refused to fight, he won anyway. Not because refusing automatically wins. Refusal can be fear. Refusal can be avoidance. But this refusal was backed by control, boundaries, and the willingness to act if reality required it. That combination is rare. Some men have restraint but no ability. Others have ability but no restraint. Bruce had both, and the alley forced everyone to see that both together are stronger than either alone. The students did not cheer when he walked away. They carried the lesson quietly. That is better. Cheering would have made the refusal into entertainment. Silence let it become a question each man had to answer later. Where do you draw foolish lines? Where do you let strangers set the terms of your dignity? Where do you confuse being seen as strong with actually being in command? These questions make the episode last beyond the alley. Bruce becomes the symbol here not of untouchable violence, but of masculine self-respect. He can stop aggression, but he does not worship the chance to do it. He can answer insult, but he does not let insult write the script. Vince becomes the warning. A man can be physically ready and spiritually unprepared. He can raise his hands and still be controlled by the crowd. He can draw a line and still be the one trapped behind it. Tommy becomes the viewer, hungry to see proof, then slowly understanding that proof without purpose can corrupt the student. His disappointment becomes education. He learns that not spilling the soup may be the first act of discipline. The restaurant owner becomes the witness of ordinary life. He did not need a legend in his alley. He needed men not to destroy the peace of his doorway. Bruce respected that. A mature fighter considers the room he is standing in, not only the opponent in front of him. That is why the story should be grounded. No myth, no glowing aura, no exaggerated prophecy. Just a wet alley, a foolish line, a paper bag, a lunge stopped cleanly, and a man calm enough to choose responsibility over spectacle. The final image is Bruce walking away under neon light, the chalk line fading behind him. Tommy holding the bag carefully, Vince gone but not destroyed. The fight never happened. The lesson did. And sometimes that is the strongest ending. No broken man on the ground, no roar from the crowd, only the quiet understanding that Bruce Lee had won the only fight worth having there. The fight not to become another man's anger. A man who wins that fight carries himself differently. He does not need every alley to become a ring. He does not need every insult to become a performance. He does not need every witness to approve his restraint. He knows what he carries. He knows when to set it down. He knows when to act. He knows when to let the rain erase the line. That is power with judgment. That is dignity with teeth. Bruce Lee refused to fight that day, and the refusal became more memorable than violence. Because violence would have answered Vince. Restraint answered everyone. That is why the story belongs in this series. It does not depend on Bruce being a myth. It depends on him being a standard for choosing when strength should appear and when strength should remain disciplined enough to stay quiet. Adults understand the cost of that quiet. It is not easy to let people misunderstand you. It is not easy to walk away when some part of the room wants the simple proof of impact. It is not easy to protect your discipline from the hunger of witnesses. But that is exactly why the refusal has weight. A refusal with no ability behind it can look empty. A refusal backed by clear boundaries and controlled action becomes something else. A man demonstrating that he owns his power, not the other way around. Vince wanted Bruce to cross a line. Bruce made the line irrelevant. Vince wanted a fight. Bruce gave him a mirror. Vince wanted an audience. Bruce gave the audience a lesson. That reversal is the spine of the episode. The soup bag should stay in the visual memory because it grounds the whole story. It makes the moment human. It tells the viewer that discipline is not only for dramatic scenes. Discipline is in what you carry while others try to make you careless. Tommy's hands around the bag are as important as Bruce's hands stopping Vince. One shows restraint taught, the other shows restraint learned. The student did not get the fight he wanted. He got the responsibility he needed. That is the quiet inheritance Bruce leaves behind in the story. Not a crowd chanting his name, not an opponent destroyed, but a young man who later tells another young man, "Do not spill what you carry." That is how a moment becomes a code. The code is simple and hard. Refuse false fights, enforce real boundaries, protect what matters, and never let another man's anger hire your strength for his performance. If action is required, act cleanly. If action is not required, keep your power whole. This is the mature version of victory. It does not always look like victory to the crowd. Sometimes it looks like patience, silence, one clean stop, one jacket offered back, one foolish line fading in rain. But a grown man knows what happened. What happened is that Bruce Lee refused to become useful to another man's ego. He kept command of his hands, his voice, his timing, his students, and the space around him. That command was the win. And the next time someone drew a foolish line in front of Tommy, he knew he did not have to step over it just to prove he could. That was the proof the alley had given him. Not how to fight for pride, but how to keep pride from choosing the fight. So the final lesson is this: the strongest man is not the one who accepts every challenge. The strongest man is the one who knows which challenges are real, which are traps, and which are only another man begging you to carry his anger for him. Bruce Lee won that day because he refused the trap without abandoning the boundary. He did not run, he did not posture, and he did not perform. He simply kept command. In a world full of men trying to rent each other's anger, command is victory. The alley became a test of what strength is allowed to ignore. Vince believed strength must answer insult because insult demands a receipt. Bruce showed that strength can refuse false accounting. A man does not owe every angry stranger a demonstration, especially when the demonstration would teach the wrong people the wrong lesson. That is the point older viewers understand quickly. A young man often thinks every challenge is about courage. A grown man learns to ask who benefits if he accepts. If the only benefit is another man's ego, the fight is already dishonest. Bruce's refusal was not empty politeness. He enforced space twice. He stopped Vince twice. He made clear that aggression would be met, but he also made clear that Vince would not be allowed to turn discipline into entertainment. That distinction gives the story its spine. Vince had wanted a simple world. Either Bruce fights and validates him, or Bruce refuses and looks afraid. Bruce denied both options. That is why Vince looked lost. He had prepared for fear or violence. He had not prepared for controlled refusal. Controlled refusal is difficult because it requires both sides of manhood: the capacity to act and the judgment to withhold. Without capacity, refusal may be survival. Without judgment, capacity becomes ego. Together, they become command. The restaurant owner understood it in practical terms. His doorway was not a dojo. His alley was not a ring. His family and workers did not need to become extras in another man's identity crisis. Bruce respected the ordinary world around the conflict, and that made his restraint more serious. This is a detail worth keeping in the voiceover. The ordinary people around the fight matter. Too many fight stories forget them. A grown man does not measure only the opponent. He measures the room, the children watching, the business nearby, the consequences that pride wants to ignore. Bruce measured all of that before he moved. Vince measured only his image. That difference made the outcome inevitable, even without a fight. One man saw the whole situation. The other saw only the version of himself he wanted the crowd to believe. That is why the paper bag works as a symbol. Bruce was carrying something simple, warm, and breakable through a moment that wanted him careless. He protected it. Tommy protected it. The bag turned the lesson into something physical. Do not spill what anger wants you to forget. Later, Tommy would remember the weight of that bag more than the shape of Vince's hands. It was not heavy, but it made him careful. That carefulness became his first understanding of discipline. Not a kick, not a punch, but responsibility held with both hands. Vince's lesson was rougher. He had to live with the fact that he could not force another man to carry his anger. He could throw words, draw lines, lunge, posture, and still fail to hire Bruce's strength for his own performance. That failure was a mercy if he used it correctly. It showed him the poverty of the game he was playing. A man who needs another man's reaction to feel large has not found size inside himself. He is borrowing it from the crowd. Bruce refused to lend him that size. He did not do it with contempt. Contempt would have been another form of participation. He did it with clarity. Clarity is cleaner than contempt. It leaves the other man room to become better if he can bear the mirror. That is why the episode should not end with triumphal music and feeling. It should end with quiet weight. The alley after rain, the chalk softening, the jacket back on Vince's shoulders, the students thinking. Bruce walking away without asking anyone to call it victory. Victory in this story is not possession of the moment. It is freedom from the moment's false demand. Vince demanded that Bruce prove himself. Bruce proved that he did not live under that demand. That is deeper than a knockout. For a channel aimed at adults, this is the emotional hook. Every man has been invited into a foolish fight. Sometimes with fists, sometimes with words, sometimes online, sometimes inside family. The challenge always says the same thing. Prove yourself by becoming less controlled. Bruce's answer is the code. Do not become less controlled to satisfy a less controlled man. If action is required, make it clean. If refusal is required, make it firm. If witnesses misunderstand, let them. Your dignity cannot depend on their immediate education. The strongest part is that Bruce does not avoid risk. He stands close enough to stop Vince. He accepts the tension, the possible misunderstanding, the eyes of the students. Restraint without risk is easy. Restraint while the crowd expects violence is the real test. This makes the story useful beyond Bruce Lee. It is about leadership under provocation, a father refusing to answer a child's disrespect with rage, a worker refusing bait from a rival, a fighter refusing a dirty challenge, a man refusing to outsource his timing to insult. And that is why the unthrown fight becomes memorable. Violence would have been simpler and shorter. Restraint gave the moment layers. Vince's need, Tommy's education, the restaurant's peace, Bruce's boundary, the line fading in rain. Every layer says the same thing in a different way. Power is not only what you can do, it is what you can keep yourself from doing when doing it would make you smaller. Bruce Lee won because he stayed larger than the challenge. He did not need to cross the line to show the line had no authority over him.